Hi, this is Kelly from The Truth in Story, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Wisdom of Avalon Oracle cards. This is a deck by Baron-Reid. The artwork is... See, you know how I feel about this. I should not have to dig very deeply for who did the images. It really is a big no-no for me. Unless Baron-Reid painted these images, there should be a name front and center. Published, distributed, look at this. Copyright, so this is 2007, so this deck has been around for a while. Published and distributed. Editorial supervision, design, illustrations are by Gary Lippincott. Down here in this little tiny copyright information, here we have the illustrator. I'm sorry, I will say it 150 times that there's no excuse for that. It should say by Baron-Reid, illustrated by Gary Lippincott. Plain and simple. There's just no reason for it. That frustrates me to no end. Because even on the back, it says the design is by Amy Rose Gregorio, and the cover illustration of this book is by Gary Lippincott. But, you know, nowhere, so I suppose there's that little thing. But again, I know, and I'm sorry, because the people who watch my videos have to see this over and over again when I say this. But there's just, yeah, for me, there's just no excuse for it whatsoever. I shouldn't have to go looking. And even this, you know, has a design and says cover illustration. It doesn't even let you know for sure that he is a designer of all of the cards. So people need to wake up about that. These cards are very much, a huge part of them are because of the illustrations, and so they should be front and center. Okay, enough said. Isabel, no. Okay, but besides that, I am actually quite in love with this deck. The other thing I think is a little bit odd is we have these beautiful purpley tones in the book in the box. Gorgeous. Hay House makes nice boxes. We have the beautiful purple in here, but the backs of the cards are very blue. Again, I like the backs of the cards, but I just think that's kind of interesting how they choose these kinds of things. So here's the back. I do like this because we've got the chalice here. You know, this is all about Avalon, King Arthur, the Holy Grail, Merlin. So I love that we have the kind of Grail chalice here. I love the moon and the star energy and the reflection, almost the seer scrying in the cup. So I do really like the backings. And you, of course, have the Celtic knotwork, which you see a lot of in the cards themselves. So that's what we have here. Again, I showed you the box. Great box. It's the size of the thing. I like these kind of decks because I can keep the cards in the box. If it's not a deck that I use a lot, I can keep it in the box and keep it on the shelf, and it's not obnoxious. So there we have that. I quite like that. Before we get to the cards, let's take a look at the book. So here again we have the Wisdom of Avalon Oracle Cards Guidebook, Baron-Reid, who obviously wrote the guidebook, so that's understandable. We have some other things that she's done. We have the table of contents. We have an introduction to Avalon. I would assume most people who would be buying this type of deck would know, you know, Avalon is an island or an isle in Britain called Avalon. It has disappeared and gone into the realm of the spiritual, So, and it was sort of like Gaia in a way. There is that sense of Avalon being an entity of itself, if that makes sense, or that's how I have always taken it. I could be wrong about that, but there is that sense of like Mother Earth, how you have Gaia as being sort of an Earth, but is also the energy and the entity behind. There is the same idea that I get with Avalon, that it's both an island, but it's a sentient island, I almost feel. And it does say that it has kind of faded away, and so that we oh, it says here, it's faded away permanently into the mist as its influence waned in the shift and blending of pagan and Christian cultures at the time of the legendary King Arthur. So King Arthur, when he was killed, was taken to Avalon, where he is said to be resting until we need him again. It does talk about, lots of books were written about Avalon. The most, for me, the one that always jumps out, and they mention as well, is The Mists of Avalon by Marion Zimmer Bradley, which I read long time ago. My sister, one of my sisters, is a huge Mists of Avalon person, so that's definitely, I need to reread that. I mean, I literally haven't read that in probably 20-some years. So it says that she designed these cards to introduce you to the magical, mythological characters of Avalon, that they can guide you as well as link your greater purpose and help you manifest your heart's desires and encourage you to gain greater self-knowledge. And she does say that to divine means to connect to your soul. So may this divination tool bless you and keep you in the sacred love of the goddess. Blessed be Colette Baron-Reid. So that's lovely introduction. And then it goes into, you know, how to use the cards, you know, a blessing that you can say when you do it, how to do readings. It talks about a single card reading and then gives you an, you know, a sample. It talks about a 3-card reading and gives you a sample, a 5-card reading, which uses cutting the deck into 5 separate piles, taking 1 card from each, and they are about the current situation, your expectation, hidden influences, advice, and outcome, and then gives you an example of how you might read that. And then it goes into the cards. We have different sections. So the first section is the messengers of Avalon. And here we have the number of the card, the name of the card, the keywords that are on the card itself, as well as a small black and white image of the card. And then there is description. It doesn't split off like a divinatory meaning. It just gives you sort of a description and information about the card right there. But between, truthfully, the image and the keywords, I don't think you need all that much with an oracle deck. So it goes through and obviously does all of that. Let me just show you the sections that it's broke off into. So we have the messengers of Avalon, which are things like the High Priestess, the King, the Queen, the Grail Knight. So these are people, the Lady of the Lake. Then we have animal guides of Avalon, where we have animals. We have the guides of Fairy, which obviously have Fae creatures. Not very many Fae. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's only Fae. And then we have a large section of the sacred journey markers, and those are more landscape based, and I love those. I looked through and split these because they stuck together a little bit, not at all ruining the cards themselves. It was just the gilding sticking together, and I really loved these marker cards. So that's how it's split in into sections, and the tops of the cards, so here's the first card of Merlin. The tops of the cards tell us, this is the messenger of Avalon, so this is one of the messengers. It tells us the person's name, the keywords. We have the image with these beautiful knotwork around it. I think this is lovely. Obviously, it's wonderful to have the whole image on the card, but I do think this is a pretty way to display the cards, and I do think it's quite lovely. You can see the colors, so all of them have the knotwork on the sides, but it's different colors, and it's not because of the category. Like, these are all messengers at the front, but the colors are not all the same. It goes with the individual cards themselves, but it's beautiful, and it brings continuity, I think, with the knotwork. I quite like that aspect. Okay, so let's move the book out of the way. So here we have the Merlin, and this is about alchemy, justice, and balance. We have the High Priestess, which is about discernment, prescience, prophecy, and vision. These are all messengers of Avalon. Then we have the King, which is about man, authority, male sexual energy, things pertaining to the law and justice. We have the Queen, which is obviously woman, fertility, feminine power, and sexuality, as well as friendships. So here we have the Novice, which is about innocence, beginner, ignorance, new skill without practice, unstable curiosity. So sort of a fool energy there. Here we have the Grail Knight. So this is about romance, illusion, and seeking the sacred. I quite like that because there is, you know, the whole story of the Grail and stuff. There is stuff about going on here about illusion. So I quite like that. And there is definitely a romanticized ideology that permeates the quest for the Grail that I think that works real well. Here we have the Bard, and this is about music, poetry, myth, history, and storytelling. Now this is the front of the box here that we have. Sorry, I can't read upside down, so I'm using the book to get the keywords. We have Absolute Truth. This is the Lady of the Lake. Absolute Truth, courage, self-respect, and responsibility. So I quite like that. Then we shift to the animal guides, and we have the Eagle, which is spirit, integrity, connection to the angelic realm. Here we have the Raven for magic, coincidence, and synchronistic events. Oops, I'm moving out of. We have the Hawk for omens and messages. We have the Swan. That's quite beautiful. That's for transformation and trusting psychic gifts. Here we have the Owl, and this is for deception and vision. So that's quite interesting because, you know, the owl uses the dark in order to be able to hunt and find its prey. So it kind of uses the cover of the night in order to do things. So I think that's quite interesting that we have both of those keywords there. We have the Frog, sorry about Isabel, cleaning house, releasing emotional baggage. I wonder why the Frog has about cleaning your house. It's time to release all things no longer appropriate to bring on your journey. So I quite understand. I like it. I like the message. I'm just not, I wonder what the tie-in with the Frog is that has that energy. Here we have the Spider for creative projects, which I think is really good. We have the Bee for luck, industriousness, and sweet victory. We have the Stag for pride and leadership. The images are really beautiful. Here we have the Cat for independence and healthy boundaries, which I think is quite appropriate because cats are quite independent and they definitely set their own boundaries. You can love them on their own terms. Here we have the Dog for loyalty, sincerity, and unconditional love. I don't know, Belle sometimes puts some conditions on her loving, but here we have the Cow for nourishment, abundance, asking and receiving, I think is the last. Yeah, asking and receiving. So that's quite interesting. You certainly get the nourishment and the abundance if you drink milk and things like that. Here we have the Wasp for anger, retaliation, and jealousy. So I like that because we had the Bee for industry and then we had the poor Wasp kind of taking the shadow side of things. But again, I do like that we have both those energies. Here we have the Deer for gentleness and diplomacy. We have the Serpent, and I'm so happy that the Serpent is for healing. It's also for knowledge, obviously transformation. You're going to get that image of transformation. I also love that the Dragon is for power and strength and not for like greediness or something like that. We have the Butterfly for beauty, again, also a very transformative energy. The Horse is for accepting help from another and delegating authority. Yeah, delegating authority. Sorry, I couldn't read that upside down. Then we move on to the Fae, and there's not very many of these. I wish there were a few more, and there's only one in here, though, that I'm not too thrilled with. So we have, let me put these out real quick. We have the elements, which I really love. So here we have the Earth Fairy, the Water Fairy, the Wind Fairy, and the Fire Fairy. So we have Earth and Water, Air and Fire. So I really love that we have all the representation of the elements. And so here we have for the Earth Fairy, physical health, grounding, and foundations. Beautiful. And I love, look at, we have the different, we have different races also, which is quite beautiful. I quite like how they did that. So then for the Water Fairy, we have sort of an Asian, Oriental, and this is for feelings and emotions, obviously, because it's water. And then we have the beautiful Fire Fairy for creative action and optimism. And then we have the Wind Fairy for thoughts, words, and intellectual analysis. So those are beautiful, and I just love having those 4 energies. I am not super fond of this particular image because I just don't feel like it goes with the rest of the deck. I like that we have the it's the wounded human ego. So it's a wounded human ego, and I like that concept, but I don't like the image. To me, it just doesn't fit with the rest of the deck, and it's very high possibility I might just leave this out because I just might. Then we come to my favorite section, and here we have the Sacred Journey markers, and these are all landscapes. The markers do not have keywords because basically their name is the keyword. The other thing is they all have these like insignias at the top, but they don't have, there's nothing talking about those particular icons, and some of them just make sense in terms of how the image that is, it works with the name of the card. So there aren't keywords, again, because I think that between the image and the keyword that is at the top, that kind of tells you that. So here we have partnership, we have focus, we have wealth, we have restriction. I love this because it's an open path and it's going into a dark point at the end. We have movement. We have joy. Very often there are things also on the actual rock like we had here for movement. This very insignia up here is actually in the artwork as well, which I think is beautiful. So here we have joy. Here we have protection. And again, we have that in the sand. We have that same icon. Here we have disruption with the lightning bolt. We have risk with the 3 arrows, and we can see the 3 arrows in the path itself. You know, when we have to make a choice, we're always taking a risk. You know, if this is the right thing to do, is the right way to go. Here we have communication. We sort of have this spiral going on here. Beautiful fall colors. Here we have perception. Here we have burden. Letting go. Love. Death. Trust. Fear. Forgiveness, Birth and Rebirth, Truth, and then the last one we have is the Mystery. So there we have them. I think, again, other than this particular card, which, again, it's just for me personally, I don't feel the energy. You know, how the images here, even the Fae images, are just very beautifully done, very realistically done. Even when you get into the Fae energy, they're just so beautiful. For me personally, this doesn't particularly mesh with it. So, yeah, this one probably is not one that I'm going to actually leave in the deck, but we shall see. So there we have a look at these particular cards. I think they're stunning. I'm really thrilled with them. Let me move outwards here. Okay. So let's see how they shuffle. Again, I know you're not supposed to rifle shuffle gilded edges, but I like worn edges. I don't mind my gilding looking like it's been used because these, I use my cards. I use them. In fact, I have to say I've been really, since I've had my reading space where I have so much room on either side, I've really, it's opened up. I used to do this a little bit where I would mix decks. I always mixed, a tarot deck and an oracle deck and things like that. But since I've been able to have decks out, and out of the way, but in reach, I have been doing a lot more of pulling from various decks within a reading that is, I'm quite enjoying that freedom of just being able to kind of go with whatever intuitively feels right to do at the time. Just a little aside that has absolutely nothing to do with these cards. So let's just see what we get. Thought I'd just do a quick little past, present, and future on this. Actually, I'll do a new moon. We're on the new moon. I think yesterday was the new moon. And so the new moon energy is still really high. So I'm just going to do a quick reading for myself because I do actually like to check in with, well, I generally do mine at the full moon. But that's okay. We'll give it a quick check about what I need to let go of, what I need to sort of integrate into my, keep hold of and kind of integrate into my sense of self. And then what kind of energy, what does I need to hold on to in the next coming moon cycle? Okay, so one more little go through. And let's take a look. Oops, I think I put those down. No, that should be right. I'm still working with the going upside down. I'm not the greatest at it, to be honest. Let me zoom in. So here we have 3 cards for me. Now, I particularly love it when cards come in the position of what to let go of. When they come in the position of, or a very, very positive card shows up in that position, because I think it makes you have to think a little bit deeper and think about that card in shadow. So when you think about joy being in shadow, there's a couple things that you can think about. You can think at it, you can come at it as sadness. So if joy is something that's in shadow, then then you're sad. You're not joyous. It's kind of the opposite. But the other thing that you can think of it also is that sometimes it can be a hyper-realized aspect of the card. That sense of, you can be sort of joyful, or you can be a hyper aspect of it, which might be manic. For me, I think it's pretty clear that joy in shadow is sadness. And it's certainly very pertinent. This last month has been very difficult, and anybody who's watched my videos know that. Just this whole holiday season, but certainly going from Cookie Day, Thanksgiving, through to tomorrow is Michael's anniversary of his passing. and then into Christmas. This is it's a difficult time of the year. And so that sense of, you need to kind of set that aside. And it doesn't mean, obviously, I'm not going to all of a sudden say, okay, I'm going to set that aside. Everything is wonderful. It doesn't necessarily work that way. But there is that sort of reminder that this too shall pass. And it talks about, even this card in the guidebook talks about like the spring sun breaking through after a long and gloomy winter. It reminds us to be grateful for the things that we have. So while I may not be able to set my grief aside, as this position kind of suggests, but to keep in mind also, in the midst of the sadness, to keep in mind the joys as well, which I feel like I've done a better job with perhaps this year than last year, but it's always something when you're in the middle of this type of process that I think is important to remember. So I think that's very pertinent for me. Something to keep hold of, I think, is wonderful to have the deer here. The deer is a very mystical creature in Celtic mythology. It passes, but the hind is a very, if you read especially on the Druid Animal Oracle, the hind is a very magical creature. But in this case, you definitely get that sense of gentleness. And that's something I've really worked hard on this hard holiday season, which, I knew was going to be a hard one, is that idea of, as I've said, and I know I repeat myself, but the idea of giving yourself grace, being gentle with myself, saying, it's okay. I don't have to be 100% healed and all this kind of thing, and just moving on with all joy in life and having no thought for the loss that I'm dealing with. That it's okay to have some days that are not great days and other days that are bad days. That's fine. It's okay. So having gentleness with myself is something that I need to hold on and keep integrated into my mindset. So that's a very good message for me. And then moving forward into the next month, or the next moon cycle, I have the Raven, which is a beautiful card. I love crows and ravens. Very, very strong animal energy for me. And this is about magic and synchronistic events, coincidence. You think about the who is it? Odin's ravens, Hoodin and okay. I'm not anywhere near the computer, so I can't. I'm sure somebody will put it, but I always think of that with ravens and sort of standing and whispering in your ear. We also have the skull here, so we have that sense of a reminder again of transformation and the cycles of life that's here. So I quite like that in the next month, the energy that I'm going to be kind of touching bases with is with that idea of magic and synchronicity. I mean, that's quite lovely. So I really do love these cards. I do want to point one thing out that I just noticed, because I was so excited I didn't pay attention. There is a copyright that is down here at the corner of the cards, which is Gary Lippincott, who did not get on the front of the box. At least he got on the card. I'm not, obviously, as you know, fond of copyrights on cards, but we do have that here. And in fact, though, what's interesting, I'm just checking to see if I see it elsewhere. He's not on the sacred markers, or at least there's not, there's not a copyright on the sacred markers. So I'm not sure if he just didn't do those, or if it's just that on these particular images they want to make sure are copyrighted. I'm not sure about that. But anyways, just pointing that little tidbit out there. So there is a copyright within the image itself. Not fond of that. But because his name wasn't on the box, I'm gonna not let that one bother me. So there we have it. I just wanted to give you a quick reading, or give myself a quick reading, so that you could kind of see how those might work together energetically. I'm really thrilled with this deck. When I first opened up the box and was flipping through the cards and unsticking them and flipping through them, I really had a strong energetic feel to this. It has a very strong energy for me. I do really like the marker cards that I'd heard mixed things about. I think the artwork is just beautiful. So all in all, I think this is really a beautiful deck. I love the mix of light and shadow. I still think it's probably higher on the light side than the other, but I think it's quite beautifully done, and at least there is some balance put there. Is something I really like to have in my Oracle decks. So I'm really pleased with this deck. deck, and I'm looking forward to working with it. So this has been a look at the Wisdom of Avalon Oracle cards by Colette Baron-Reid with the artwork by Gary Lippincott.